Kenya is currently ranked the 6th most depressed country in Africa.
It's okay not to be okay.
It's okay not to be okay.
To all of you out there, guess what? It's okay not to be okay.
Taking a look at these children, one cannot fail to get carried away by their innocence, peace, and joy. Their appreciation for every single little thing is what makes them children in every way. Every child deserves the freedom to grow up and develop, the freedom to eat, the freedom to go to sleep knowing that they will wake up to see daylight, the freedom to go to school and learn new things every day. And above all, the freedom to dream. Their dreams should include what they want to be when they grow up and who they want to become. And the worst thing that you can ever do is rob a child of their dreams. But unfortunately, we live in a world where the amount of children who are getting robbed of their dreams is rising at an alarming rate and spreading all across the globe. And it is time we stand up, speak up, and have conversations that will be able to restore normalcy in these children's lives. My name is Natalie Wumboy. I am 12 years old, and I am coming to you to plead with you to listen and understand why it is important to save our children. Children are one of the most vulnerable people on this earth, because of their age and the dependency on adults who have a responsibility of taking care of them. Some of them are also vulnerable to violations of their rights because of an aspect of poverty, because of their identities and circumstances such as having a mental health disorder, because of having no family, because of being differently abled, and so much more. And it is time we talk about the big elephant in the room that is killing the potential of our young children, robbing them of their future, and in some cases, robbing them of their lives. At any given time now, 1 out of 5 of our children is going to start suffering from a diagnosable mental health disorder. In fact, mental health disorders have become so common in children's diseases, and sadly, we have no vaccine. "60% of children in Africa live in poverty. This is a sad reality for us that pushes our children to child labor from a very young age. The 2016 global estimates of child labor indicate that 1/5 of all African children are involved in child labor, a proportion more than twice as high in any other region. Young children from the largest group of those in child labor. The age breakdown of children in child labor indicate that 59% of all those in child labor are 5 to 11 years age bracket, 26% are aged 12 to 14 years, and the 15% fall into the 15 to 17 years age range. This age profile of child labor is much younger than elsewhere. Children in the youngest age bracket also constitute in the largest group in hazardous work in Africa. Among so many negative effects of child labor, and the least talked about is the psychological effect and the mental disorders that come with it. Unfortunately, only in the 20th century did we start talking about children and mental health, although here in Africa, in most parts, it's still a taboo. Depression, hopelessness, shame, guilt, loss of confidence, and anxiety are some of the horrible emotional effects of child labor, leading to a high risk of mental illness and antisocial behavior. Children who become involved in different labor-related works have no opportunity to develop their natural psychosocial health, and most are affected by abnormal psychological growth. Other than child labor, child abuse may affect a child's physical and mental health in both direct and indirect ways. Dr. Selina Pinashimo, who is a trauma specialist, helps us understand the symptoms and behavioral changes top lookout for what would indicate a child has suffered physical abuse.
It's about education, it's about conversation, it's about building trust, it's about building safety, it's about educating, it's about letting children know that there's certain things that shouldn't be happening, and if they happen you need to tell them it's okay. And breaking the fear, there's a big piece there. In order for them to speak, they have to know that the fear that was placed inside of them they don't have to worry about that anymore. That's not going to happen. That was just to fool them so they would continue to do what they're doing. We have to empower people to say what happened, to talk, to use their voice. There's many of us, such as myself, who are the voice of those who suffer in silence, and we have to help them use their own voice to get to a safe place. So if they can get to a safe place, it's usually, and they know that they're safe and they're going to be safe and they're going to be taken care of, they can usually, after time, begin to unload and flood their emotions out and discuss what happened to them.
The immediate emotional effects of abuse and neglect, isolation, fear, and inability to trust can translate into lifelong consequences, including low self-esteem, depression, and relationship difficulties, as well as an increased risk of developing an addiction to drugs and alcohol. Meet Joel Maina, a 15-year-old boy from Kayole in Nairobi, Kenya.
Nilikuwa kwa street for 4 months. Kwa hiyo street nilikuwa narogota chuma. Mamangu alikuwa shida kifafa. Babangu alitoroka, sijui penye alienda. Siku moja nikapatikana kibahati mbaya kwa garage. Wakaanza kusema nimeiba chuma yao. Wakaamua kunipiga mob justice. Wengi wetu walikuwa wanaenda wanaiba chuma kisha wanatoroka. So this time nilipatikana, wakaamua kunigonga. At that moment, game ilikuwa inaendelea grao. Kocha akaona mimi mdogo na naweza gongwa, akakuja kanitetea. Na alikuwa na players less, akaniweka nikacheza. Nilikuwa na kijana mwingine aitwa Anto, tulikuwa naye. Tuweka, tukacheza poa, akatuambia kesho tukuje. Akatuona hivyo, alishindwa venye atakopa with us juu tulikuwa short tempered. Na ilikuwa ngumu kutu understand. Lakini by time aka understand. Tukaendelea hivyo. Tukamwambia tuendangi shule juu siku za shule sasa tuko tunaenda tunakuja kurogota chuma, akashindwa venye atatusaidia. Na hiyo siku tulikuwa na kwetu juu mangu alikuwa na shida, hatukuwa naweza kulipa rent, na ilikuwa shida.
Children like mine clearly need counseling, rehabilitation, and mentorship for them to overcome psychological challenges. Renowned medical practitioner and mental health specialist Dr. Bindu Babu reminds us that love is a very special ingredient in every child's upbringing.
Sometimes we think our children know we love them. And they do. They know the things that you do for them, you feed them, you take care of them, you educate them. But we're adults. We can understand all the work behind what we do for our children. Children don't understand that because children are mindful. And when I say children are mindful, that means children live for the now. They live for this moment right now. It's important that we constantly tell our children verbally, by communication, that I love you and I stand by you no matter what, and I'll always support you in your goods and in your bads because I love you, because I'm your mother or I'm your father. It's so important to open that doorway and say it with communication, with words, because that's how children will communicate back with you. And that's when you can advise them. avoid and prevent predators that will come after your child or other children of such brutal violence of child rape. It's important to understand how communication is a huge factor of prevention.
In my quest to probe more of Mina's journey, I get to meet and encounter a gentleman by the name of Wango, popularly known as Coaches. Wango is the founder of Reformer Sports and Community Service, which is a community-based organization that seeks to help young people that have been challenged by mental health disorders, either directly or by extension.
Ilikuwa inanihurt sana kuona mtoto anafaa kuwa shule au kwa street. So ndio nikaanza na hii shughuli polepole. Na vision main agenda ilikuwa ni kutransform na kuchange life za watu hapa mtaani. Tukiuse sport, because sports inaongea kwa my youth kwa ile language wanaelewa. So tulianza hivyo. Na today as we speak, tuko na more than 400 members from both genders. Na pia tumeweza kupeleka watu more than 150 kids back to school, which most of them wangekuwa kwa street. Wengine tumeweza kuwa change, wengine tumewapeleka back to their families, tumeweza kuwa connect back.
His desire to seek change made him want to become the change that he wanted to see. He hopes that more people can partner with him in these efforts and save the lives of these very vulnerable children. Children need love and affirmation. And when they come from dysfunctional backgrounds like Mina's and others, then it becomes our collective responsibility to ensure that they feel loved and wanted. Among organizations that have come forth to support Wango's initiative is the Josiah Gadura Karaoke Memorial Foundation. This is a foundation that was birthed out of pain experienced by the Karaoke family after the loss of their son due to suicide on 3rd of May 2017.
The foundation came about after we lost our 18-year-old son, Josiah Karaoke, on the 3rd of May 2017. He had been struggling with mental health. He was receiving care from psychiatrists and psychologists. But even with all that level of support, he still succumbed and took his own life. The thing about mental illness and depression is that those who are suffering, and I guess thanks to the stigma that society has created around mental illness, they seldom talk about their feelings. They become very secretive, they become very private, very detached. But at the same time, they become perfect actors. They're able to put up a face that nobody can be able to decode and see what is happening behind the face.
Dr. Astral Webb, who is the president of Healthy Kinder International LLC, brings us global statistics of youth struggling with mental health and wellness.
Globally, we have seen 1 in 5 young people struggle with anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, eating disorders, attention deficit disorders, obsessive compulsive disorders, and substance use and misuse are some of the most common mental health disorders. However, post-COVID-19, we have seen that actually 1 in 3 young people struggle with suicidal ideation, anxiety, and depression. We can no longer not have the conversations around youth mental health. We must tear down the walls of the stigma and discrimination so that our young people can get the help that is available and make sure that they know that recovery is possible. Many of our children feel hopeless and helpless, which will cause them to go into crisis, in which case we find a high rate of suicide ideation. It is really important that we do not assume that when they become adults, they will get the help they need. The average age at which a child will attempt suicide now is between 10 and 12 years old. Although many attempt at a much younger age, we cannot wait until full adulthood to address the underlying issues. Sadly, in our marginalized communities, where we see an enormous amount of community and gang violence, many of our children are struggling, whether they are victims or they witness the violence in their communities. They hurt from the physical, mental, emotional abuse that they may experience within their own households. It is not the time to blame them for the things that happen to them, but instead we must understand that the injustices within our communities are robbing our children of a potentially productive life if we do not address mental health issues. Sometimes the impact is short-lived, and other times it can cause a lifetime of permanent turmoil for that child, and therefore the quality of their lives will never be maximum.
Dr. Webb reminds us of signs to look out in severe cases of mental health and depression that could lead to suicide.
We notice that 4 out of every 5 children who struggle with a mental health disorder show warning signs. They may have changes in their sleep pattern or their appetite. They may vocalize certain things. They may give away their favorite things, which sometimes can clue you that a child is thinking of suicide. But what we need to pay attention to are those children who withdraw, who socially are different from the way they used to be. Part of the normal development in the teenage years is social development, but one where they gravitate to those who are their ages and not to the older age group. So pay attention to the children who are withdrawing. Withdrawing from family members and parents is okay, but withdrawing too from their peers is a warning sign that that child is deeply hurting emotionally, and they need to be evaluated.
The critical thing about mental health is that a lot of families struggle with it. And indeed, the whole society struggle with mental health issues simply because there's a very deep level of lack of knowledge and stigmatization of mental health problems. And many people equip it to madness or other, especially within the African context. And for most of the families that suffer, have the misfortune of going through experiencing these mental health challenges that usually result in suicide. They never talk about it.
The time to act is now. Pay attention to your children. Have conversations with them. We cannot lose another life unnecessarily. So my plea is to all of you as parents to understand that the pain that our children feel from mental health stresses is just as real as the physical pain from a broken knee or a ruptured appendix. We must act immediately and don't wait.
I will be there when you need me, and I will be there when you cry, baby. I will be there when you need someone to tell you that you're beautiful, baby. I will be there when you need someone to run away, and I will be there when you need someone to dance with. I'll be a lover till the sky turns gray, girl, 'cause you're beautiful, baby.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you to the karaoke family. Out of this will come out great things. Out of this will come out good things. And more so, start a journey for many people who don't know what direction to take. Thank you all.
When I'm in your hands, you can turn the pavement into white sand. You can make a moment a memory in advance. And I can't leave anyone else. Now everybody's talking, you don't stop. you're beautiful, baby. I will be there when you need someone to run away, and I will be there when you need someone to dance with. I'll be your lover till the sky turns gray, girl, 'cause you're beautiful, baby. It's a beautiful, oh you're beautiful, it's your beautiful, baby. It's a beautiful, oh you're beautiful.
Lack of proper mental health care is one of the biggest, most public health crises of our time. Now, as humans, our minds are constantly judging, and that's fine, it's natural. But if I were to put out this question, how many negative terms have been used to describe the mentally ill? Words like insane, weird, freak, crazy, psychopath, and so on. But another question, how many of these negative terms have been used to describe those with cancer? Absolutely none. But these are both illnesses, right? Why is it that every time you suffer from an illness of the body, you are seen as courageous and bold? And every time you suffer from an illness of the mind, you are seen as irrational? Come on, people, we can do better than that. Let us hold hands and walk with each other. I am coming to you today because I am tired of living in a world where if you break your arm, you get a cast. But if your mind is broken, you get outcast. Over the course of this documentary, 20 people from different parts of the world have all lost their lives due to suicide. And with the proper treatment and spaces to talk about their problems, each and every single one of these deaths would have been prevented. And it is the responsibility of every single human being on earth to raise awareness on mental health. It is time to end the stigma, to start, support, and save lives. There is no health without mental health.